Hello, everyone. Welcome to a special crossover edition of Q&A and Inside the Birds. I'm Geoff Mosher and Adam Caplan, of course, from Inside the Birds, and two stars of our new Inside the Birds presentation, Q&A. We got former Eagles Pro Bowl safety Quintin Mikell, former Eagles wide receiver Jason Avant. So we got Q&A, we got ITB. Fellas, pretty cool to be with you all here. I'm excited that you guys, Q&A, wanted to do this with me and Adam. We thought like this is the perfect time headed into the draft to talk about, where the franchise is at, what this draft is going to be like, some guys that you like for the Eagles, and then kind of the future about where the Eagles will go from here. So the first thing we want to say, on behalf of me and Adam is congratulations, because Q&A has been an awesome success and part of ITB, and we're really happy with what you guys are doing and bringing to the platform. So thank you.
Oh, man, thank you, man. Thank you for giving us opportunity. And, it's been great. You guys have been nothing great for us and showing us, the ropes and letting us rock. So I appreciate it as well.
I want to ask you a question on that, Q. What's your experience been like as a show host, a podcaster? What do you think about doing that so far?
Oh, I love it. It's been a lot of fun. I've always kind of had this idea that, there's so much to the game that a lot of people may or may not know about. There's so many things that are on my mind, and I'm sure Jason's mind as former players and current fans of the Eagles and really the game of football. And so it's been a great experience to be able to get my thoughts across and things that, people ask me, questions that I get from people as I'm walking through the town or whatever. So it's been a great experience, and it's been a lot of fun.
Jason, you're a natural. I mean, you kind of took this whole hosting thing and being the lead there and giving your perspective. That's the one thing you guys do great is tell stories, and you bring like people inside the NovaCare as much as you can, which I think is what people really appreciate from both your playing days and then Q as working in the front office for a year, and Jay, you obviously being an assistant wide receivers coach there for a year. So that and the analysis is fantastic. But Jay, you just kind of like, you're you get in front of the mic and you're kind of a TV. Both of you guys are. But I asked Jay, I said, do you want to lead this thing or do you want me to do it when we were talking about going together where I lobbed the questions? You were like, nah, we'll handle it. And you've been great.
It makes it a lot easier because Q's, really great at his job, and we look forward to it. We look up to you guys, and that's the thing that most players don't get a chance to tell guys that come up through the ranks in the media, being asked questions year after year and seeing you guys' faces over and over again, and seeing, Adam on ESPN and you in the locker room every day. We look up to you guys. It's a hard job that you guys do. And I have nothing but respect and I like it. The thing that I love about podcasting and or media in general, you have the opportunity to be yourself and speak your mind.
Definitely.
When you're in the confines of an institution, it's very, very hard to have individuality and or speak against the machine. So there's freedom when we speak. There are certain subjects that can be a little bit more, top secret. But at the same time, we still have that platform to speak our minds. And I love doing that. So having this opportunity that you and Adam have presented to us, me and Q, we thrive in it. We relish it. It brings us back closer to the game as well. You put on a tape, you study a guy, like I've been studying J.C. Horn and Caleb Farley and Greg Newsom, like all this week, right? So, so it keeps you involved in the game and it's fun. I love it. So thank you guys. Man, shout out to Inside the Birds for allowing us.
No problem. Let me just tell you one thing before we get into our first topic. You're not supposed to do this on social media, but Adam and I can't help ourselves. We read the comments. All right. We see all the comments. We don't respond too much, but if you're out there, you leave a comment, we saw it. And don't think I haven't seen the 6 or 7 comments every once in a while that say, Adam and Geoff, you guys might want to watch out a little bit for your jobs because, Q&A's got something going on there. And
we're going to want to be out there.
Hey, we're all in the same family now. It's good.
It's good.
It's all good.
It's all good to
awesome.
me.
We appreciate it.
That's awesome.
That's right.
Awesome,
that's right. But
we're learning. We're the proteges here. We're learning from.
Well, thank you for the kind words about us. We really enjoyed doing this, and we're going to enjoy tonight because we got a lot to talk about. It's kind of be a little past, present, and future type of show. So before we kind of get into the draft, guys, and Adam, let's talk about like kind of the state of the Eagles going into the draft? Because, and we don't have to like rehash everything that's gone on in the last 18 months because everybody knows about it. And I think people have kind of Carson fatigue and franchise upheaval fatigue. But let's kind of go through what they've done to try to right their wrongs. They've signed a couple of free agents. The big ones being the safety Anthony Harris, the linebacker Eric Wilson, right? Eric Wilson, did I get? Yeah.
Yep.
They brought back Jordan Howard. So we'll see what kind of purpose that he serves, right? And the safety from Tampa Bay for special teams. The one thing though that I think we're all a little bit surprised about is that they decided to fill all these glaring holes so they don't have to reach in the draft. But you look at cornerback and you see Darius Slay, and then you see a list of names there of unrecognizable names. Now we'll take Avonte Maddox out of that because he probably is best suited for the slot. But if you need to play a game today and someone's going to line up outside opposite Darius Slay, Adam, I mean, we talked about it all this time. Aren't you a little surprised that there has been, of all the positions, how he went to shore up, he did not do this one?
You know, it's interesting. We reported that they were in on
TJ Carey.
TJ Carey, and Carey is only getting $2 million. I know the Eagles want to do a minimum deal. I understand that, but you couldn't come up with another $1 million. I don't know. I understand they're tight against the cap. I get that. We knew going to free agency they'd be very quiet. To this point, they have been. But I was talking to someone on Tuesday from another team, and we were going over the cornerback position. He goes, "Who do you think Philly's going to take? And what do you think they'll do at 12? Do you think they'll take a corner?" I said, "Yeah, but if they can't get a corner, we'll see what they do. But I don't see how they line up because Maddox, as you said, Geoff, he's got to play slot. That's what they drafted him to do. They thought he could be an elite slot. In that draft in 18, from what I heard from two people, is like everyone was unanimous in that room that year. This is a great pick for us. He's our future corner, our slot corner. He could be here for however many years, 2 contracts. And he's done a good job when he's been exclusively a corner. Heck, he played safety. But, Geoff, again, we know this. He's not an outside corner.
Let me ask Q and Jason this, because there are guys in this league who are short, who are 5'9", 5'10", 5'11", but can play outside, climbing the wall against the taller wide receivers. Clearly, when you watch Avonte, though, it's not his specialty. Is it all about his height there, or is there something with Avonte where you feel like his skill set just will never translate to the outside effectively?
I'll let the DB go first here.
Yeah, so that's a interesting question, and really it's a tough one to answer because until you get someone on the field, like I put it this way, not everybody that plays outside can play inside, and not everybody that plays inside can play outside. And so, a lot of times on outside, you got bigger, longer range type players, right? You're usually playing close to the sidelines. You have to take away the deep ball. Inside, you got little short, sometimes big, physical. Sometimes you're on a tight end slot type player where they have a lot of wiggle, a lot of different type of route trees inside. And so the way I look at it is the more quick twitch, quicker type players fit better inside. The more long range, rangy, Patrick Peterson types, big bodies that can run for days. Those are the type of guys that fit outside. And so for me, when I see Maddox play, I think number one, he plays with his eye discipline needs to get better, especially outside. But inside, I think his quick twitch is more suited for playing inside. And so that's the kind of way I look at it with him.
Is it as simple as saying that he doesn't flip his hips as well for an outside corner as you would like?
Yeah, I think it's that. And I think his long range speed isn't quite there.
Right.
And I think personally he's a physical looking guy. I don't think he's very physical outside. You have to be able to muscle that receiver, that number one receiver out there, especially if you're at the X, because the X is off the ball a lot of times if you're impressed. And so I don't see him as that type of a player outside. I think he's better suited for inside in that slot.
Jay, from a receiver standpoint, do you feel, now we're about to head into kind of a new terrain, right, with a different defensive coordinator, but I kind of felt that in general for cornerbacks, what Q was saying about Avonte not really getting physical at the line or with the receiver, I think Darby seemed to have that issue. I mean, because guys were always back
Yeah.
a lot. I mean, it was very rare that Jim was going to have guys up. And I actually thought Darby, and maybe he's doing it better now because he's not with the Eagles or Jim. Darby always seemed to get faked by the slants and then the sluggos because he's playing off. It always seemed like he was more comfortable when he was up on guys, but Jim didn't do that as much. Do you think that there was some kind of maybe because certainly Darby and certainly Avante Maddox, I mean, we can go through Sidney Jones and Rasul. A lot of cornerbacks struggled, and a lot of different cornerbacks struggled under Jim. And it was easy for us to always say talent, talent, talent. But even Darius last year had a few issues with guys, right? So do you think it was how they were taught, the technique they were playing, and the scheme that might have been also problematic there?
Well, let me backtrack a little bit. So to go back to Avante Maddox, me coaching there I had the pleasure of I actually felt like I coached the DBs just as much as I did the receivers because, when I would do routes with the receivers, because I still can move a little bit, even though I'm an old man, like for 5 yards, I'm just as good as anybody.
Hey, Jason, real quick,
flag football coming in.
I was just going to say in the flag football league, man, until that overtime game, Jason, until when they said you got to play defense, you're like, man, I can't move anymore. I can't.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway. It was too much. I'm like, I can't. I'm not playing defense.
So you were saying about Avante.
So you have your 5 yards or whatever, and the receivers, hey man, demonstrate it, and I would demonstrate it, and the DBs is like, oh, he still can move. Let's come over and get some releases from him. And this was like I would watch DK Metcalf, I would watch whoever it is, and I would, replicate that guy for Slay or for whoever else, on Fridays. And going against Avante, what made it, clear to me is that he wasn't used to being in front of people. It wasn't something I think that he was too comfortable with. And some guys just have the ability just to go for every move. And Avante, for me, goes for too much head and shoulders. He's looking at the wrong spots. Q can attest to this. When you look at Avante's film, if you give him a shoulder wiggle or something, he's going to forget what he's been taught. And usually those types of guys, when it comes to outside corners, is going to be very, very hard because you need to touch people when you're outside. You have to be able to touch them and feel a route concept. And that's why I think that he struggled. Now, when you start to talk about Darby and the other guys, Darby is always around the ball when he's in press. He's going to get beat because of his height, but off is just not his cup of tea. That's just not. And you have to play to your players' strengths. And I like the ability that Jim Johnson gave, where if you were in cover 3, you were in cover 4, it was basically up to the corner and his preference, the way he wanted to play it. So I remember Sheldon teaching me, schooling me as a rookie in my second year. I learned more from Sheldon Brown than I have probably of any corner, because he would jam me in cover 3 or jam me in cover 4. He's like, man, you're so elusive, at the line of scrimmage. He's like, but if I can, play this technique and it looks like I'm head up, but I'm really outside and I'm in this, he had the leeway to do that. And, I don't know if the guys had that leeway based on my intel, my information. I don't think that they had that leeway, but a defense coordinator will give you the leeway to say, hey, long as you can stay on top in cover 3, long as you can stay outside and stay in your court and in quarters, you can stay in your position. I don't care if you press or you're off. I think that will give guys a better opportunity to kind of match their skills according to, their abilities, I guess, or the talent that's in front of them.
Sure. Yeah. So Adam, like you've reported a lot, and you're one of the first on to say that, although Jonathan Gannon comes from the Colts and he may bring some of what Matt Eberflus does, he's really a disciple of Mike Zimmer. And you've talked about disguise. Explain exactly what you're expecting with a Jonathan Gannon defense that might be different than Jim's.
I know. Just talking to people who know Gannon, my ears perked up because we got so much criticism from other teams. What we would do last season, in particular, is we would talk to someone from the opponent. Hey, give me what you see from the Eagles tape. And almost universally, every opponent said this Jim Schwartz defense is so easy to figure out. They don't do anything to make the quarterback to hold the football. They just don't. No, because he doesn't disguise. He doesn't believe in it.
Right.
He believes in 4-man pressure. Okay. He plays his secondary a certain way. They don't change. He goes, go beat me. Now, if you look at the end of the season, I've said this a lot about Jim Schwartz. The numbers look a lot better than defense will play. Schwartz doesn't care about turnovers, which, believe me, the Eagles couldn't stand when he would say that. No, something you don't say, but he said Jim gets away with it. But the guy has been a very successful defense coordinator. So why am I bringing this up? The way that I heard it from somebody is that you're going to see disguise pre-snap and post-snap, particularly post-snap, which is the way that you impact the quarterback. The one valid criticism of everything that I've heard about Schwartz does very little to impact the quarterback by pre-snap and post-snap phase.
Now, it's funny. You said that, and I agree with you. And I think these guys would too, that you could tell that Jim Schwartz feels turnovers are like, not happenstance, but like you can only do what you do. And if you get a turnover, you get a turnover. It's not necessarily a function of what you always do defensively. I think some coordinators would probably disagree with that. I bet Lovie Smith has a totally different view on that because his defense always produced turnovers and had guys who knew how to get the ball. The Ravens do the same thing. Q, do you remember? I think it was 2008 because you guys finished 2007 at 500, right? You were 5-8. You won the last 3 games. I think you had a big role in that game in Dallas that year, if I remember. If that was the year where you hit Marion Barber at the goal line twice, was that 2007?
Was that year? Wow.
I don't know. My memory is weird like that. I remember very singular things from games. But I do remember the following year in training camp and OTAs, Jim Johnson made a mandate that if the ball touched the ground, like it doesn't matter. Yeah. He wanted you guys on it. And I remember that whole camp with you guys, like there was no such thing as incomplete pass. Everything was a turnover because there was like a scrum to the ball on anything that was incomplete. Do you remember that?
Yeah, absolutely. I can't remember if that came from Sean or Jim, but I know it was like a big emphasis that year. And it was like literally anytime the ball hit the ground, it was like a fight to get the ball. And
irritating.
The receivers hated it. but it was great. It was a great idea. It trained you to the importance of, listen, if that ball hits the ground, go get it. And you're seeing it now. You've seen it nowadays where, if the ball hits the ground, let's say in the years past, right? If the ball hits the ground, you weren't sure or not if it was a fumble or not. Mm-hmm. You kind of let it go, and then the ref didn't blow the whistle, and then you lose the chance to get the opportunity. So now it's like you've seen it all over the NFL now. When that ball's on the ground, people are scooping and scoring just because, just because the ref didn't see it doesn't mean that it wasn't a fumble. You can throw the red flag and get the turnover. So, I thought that was really cool. It was a lot of fun. It actually made training camp for the defense, made training camp a lot more fun.
Oh, yeah, you guys were getting that. Yeah, for you guys, you're picking up the football off the ground, rubbing it in the receiver's face like they did something wrong when they didn't even come close to the ball.
No, you just scored a touchdown on somebody and you're running back to the huddle and somebody comes and knocks the ball out and they act like they did something.
That's right.
Ball security, man.
All right, I want to shift to offense really quick before we get into the draft, just kind of an overall look. But Jason, real quick, as we finish off defense, how do you feel like what a Mike Zimmer team looks like? I mean, he's been coaching forever and he's got some disciples. How do you feel like it'll look from the start? Because it's obviously a way different scheme. Like the linemen are so used to just getting up the field. It's going to be a little bit different. Adams talked about the fact that they're going to be a little bit more read and react from what he's been told.
Front.
They're going to be a little more active with twists and stunts. I've been told that, which is not something Jim did a whole lot of. And then the middle and the back end are playing a scheme that they've just haven't been playing. So will this look kind of ugly in September, you think? Especially without guys going to OTAs and stuff?
Listen, I think that it's going to be hard because remember the Eagles roster as it stands is still old. And it's kind of hard to teach old dogs new tricks. And that's the thing about when you have such drastic change and you're unsure about the Doug Peterson fire and you bring in Sirianni, you got new defense coordinator and Gannon, you have all these things. Trust me, there's people in that locker room that still believe that Doug Peterson should be there. And there are players that are like that. And there's players on offense, there's players on defense. Mm-hmm. So if based on what Sirianni's talking about in these press conferences, which is I don't know what the hell it is.
We're gonna get to that. Don't worry.
Right? So like you don't know how guys are going to gauge that and how much guys are going to buy in.
Right.
So time will tell. There's some people that believe and you know who loves Jim Schwartz? Let me tell you who loves Jim Schwartz. The defensive lineman.
Oh, of course they do.
They love it.
Look at the numbers, man.
Yeah, the defensive linemen love Jim Schwartz because everything is predicated on them. They get the most leeway. They're the jokers. Everyone else has to adapt to them. Now you bring in a new defensive coordinator, and now I have to disguise stuff, meaning that I have less, freedom in my rush. When it comes to certain things, like you never know how that can go. It can be all in if guys are getting to the quarterback and turnovers are created, in the first couple of games. But again, if there is any room for doubt, it's older team. It can possibly be terrible too. So
sure. All right. Well, that's interesting. Hopefully not, but we will see.
A good point, though.
I agree.
Yeah.
You know who loves Bill Belichick? Cornerbacks.
Well,
they get paid.
Yes. Let me ask one follow up for either of you guys. When you have a new head coach, okay, what is the buy-in like? Like, as a veteran, do you go in and say, okay, I at least want to hear the guy first. I want to hear what my coordinator has to say, or like, how do you get people to buy in? It would be my question. How do coaches get guys to buy in?
Yeah, that's a tough one. So in my experience, I've had Andy Reid, and then I had Coach Spags, who I was familiar with, and then I had Jeff Fisher, and I had Ron Rivera. So really, Jeff Fisher was the only coach that I had no real familiarity with, and I'm gonna tell you, he was next to Andy and probably next to Andy, he's probably one of the funnest coaches to play for because he was a player's coach. Like he totally understood it. He understood, the wear and tear on your body. He understood the family aspect of it. And so, having Jeff Fisher come in, it was great. It was great. We bought in right away just because, just the first couple meetings with them, the first couple practices with them. Like it was, as a veteran, that's the guy that I would want as my head coach, as a vet.
Okay.
But that being said, I think it's a kind of a mixture between, where am I at in my career? Am I trying to get a second contract? Do I really have to deal with this BS? Can I force my way out? So it's really a combination of how the coach comes in, what his type of style is coach wise. Like not very many coaches can come in, with the mindset of like a college coach, like it's my way or the highway, right. Not an NFL. Like you can't do that anymore.
It's a partnership.
Yes, exactly. It's a partnership. You're not a dictator. And so I think if a coach comes in with that mentality of, listen, I'm a coach, but I need these guys to play together, to play for me, right? If I can come in with that mentality, I think a coach will have way more success than, a dictatorship type mentality.
I agree with Q, and I'm going to answer you this way, Adam. What makes this very perplexing to me and, worrisome to me is that when I hear Sirianni speak, it's all over the place. I heard a couple commenters say that it's like a pinball machine, like he's a human pinball machine where it's here, it's there. And guys buy in when there is clear-cut lines, black and white. This is the way. I know my information through and through. There's no room for, gray area. I've seen multiple different scenarios. I know that this play may not work 100% of the time, but I know that it's in the 90 percentile, and I can even explain to my players that, hey, this is the look where it doesn't work. This is the type of defense that this does not work against. If I know all of those things as a player, my information is rock solid, and I can tell the players the outcome before it happens and the percentage of this play working or the percentage of this technique working, I'm going to be good. But if I'm a guy that's spitballing and I'm a guy that looks like I'm uninformed, especially to veteran players, it's not going to go across well. It's just not. They've been around too many good players. They won a Super Bowl here. They had Coach Reed, one of the best coaches of all time, right? You have all of these guys. Jim Schwartz, a great defense. These are guys that know this game, and you have to be able to live up to that intellect, football-wise, in order to get guys to respect you.
Really interesting stuff. We're going to I'm not going to table it, but we're going to continue to talk about that when we get into the future here, because I think when you guys say it, it carries more weight than when the media does, because people think that, we're not there, we're not players, we don't know what we're talking about. And look, I've not said, nor has Adam, that he's going to be a failure because of these bad press conferences or awkward, I'll say, press conferences. But as I said it on our pod, when I'm getting texts from guys who played, and some of who I haven't spoke to in a while, kind of like, what's going on here, Geoff? Because they're looking for me, knowing I'm closer to the situation. They're a little bit further removed. That's where my signal goes up and says, well, all right, it's not just the media negativity instinct. It's other people who look from afar too. So we'll get into that. It's a good segue though, to talk about him and his offense right now and how as we kind of still look at the team currently. We talked about the corner being kind of not addressed by Howie. He hasn't gone out and gotten a wide receiver either. And it's not that they need it because they have a lot of guys in the room, Jason, but the one thing that I feel like they might be missing, even if they were to draft one, is the old grown man in the classroom, right? Like they've got a lot of young kids, and Marquise is not with the team. He wasn't with the team last year. He could have been the veteran. Deshaun was hurt, but now those guys are gone. And your most older wide receiver is like Greg Ward, who's year 2 or 3. So am I making too much of that, or do you look at that the same way? Like that's a little strange.
You're not. You always need, and people say you need veteran leadership. You need the right veteran leadership, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not just that you have a name. You need a guy that's going to be a lunch pail guy, sort of like Greg Ward, but with more, more of a resume in the league, maybe a little bit more success. Mm-hmm. And they don't have that guy, and you haven't, when you draft a bunch of guys that come from smaller conferences, right? You got TCU and Jalen Reagor, you got Southern Miss and Boise State and Hightower, right?
Don't be talking bad about
Boise
State.
Man. I'm not,
Listen.
but they're smaller conference. Listen. Don't be on me, Q. When you have this, right, there is going to be a little bit of a learning curve. Right. Mm-hmm. So you need a guy in front of them that can kind of man and show them the way. And I don't necessarily know if older disgruntled, Alshon or Deshaun at that age is going to be the solution for that. Right. We've never known those guys to be the best role models in the world. Right. So if you can go out and get a guy, which they could have gotten, I understand that there's salary cap issues, but you have a lot of pieces that you want to get rid of. There's guys that has been on a trading block for months now. So there's ways to get around that and get a veteran leader in there, and they squandered the opportunity. Now you're going to be stuck with another rookie, possibly. If they don't go corner, they're going to go receiver. And to have a stable full of young receivers, it looks good on paper because there's a lot of names that were drafted pretty high. But in the National Football League, a veteran corner can eat that for lunch. It's just the truth.
Without specifically naming a name, right? I just want you to give your sense, because you were around these guys collectively, of the maturity of that group of wide receivers. Like, is it a group that can withstand not having an older guy, or do you think those guys could really use someone to be kind of that leader?
I think every young receiver can use it, right? Mm-hmm. They can use the leadership. However, I think the season that the team had last year, the 4-12 and just a bad season overall. Mm-hmm. And getting a taste of how much Philadelphia loves this team and this city and how important it is to win, mm-hmm. and the media scrutiny and how they're the worst thing since sliced bread, and having those things said to them, I believe that matures them a lot quicker. I think that's the benefit of playing in a city like Philadelphia. Now you know what the expectations are. It's up to you to live up to those expectations. We'll give you a pass the first time around, but now it's on you. And I think that those guys being in the city, knowing how everyone say they stink, can bring out something great and something special. So can they overcome it? Yes, they can. Mm-hmm. Would it have been better for them to be, gifted someone that can help them through that process? Yes. But can they overcome? Depends on how well Jalen Hurts plays. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot of caveats there. Offensive line can't go at 50 sacks either. It just can't happen. So
let's talk about Jalen Hurts a little bit. Q, I had this conversation today with a friend, and I said, I know there's this mindset, right, where you give him a year and see how he does, and if it doesn't pan out, you got a lot of assets for next year. If it does, you hit on a second round pick. And I was trying to say it's like never that easy. It's never tends to be that cut and dried with a quarterback, especially a young one with not maybe a great team around him. Because if I were to look into a crystal ball, I would bet you there are going to be, out of 17 games next year, and that's weird, really weird to say, there's going to be like 5 or 6 games where he actually looks pretty good and you feel good about it. There's going to be 4 or 5 games or 6 games where he doesn't look that good and you're not sure. And by the end of the year, you're going to have, kind of like you almost have now, half the city being like, oh, you got to give him that other year because now you got to build a better team around him. And then you're going to have the other half saying, no, I already convinced he didn't lead us to the playoffs. He couldn't play. I remember when the Eagles were 3-0 in Carson Wentz's first 3 games. And the question on Sports Talk Media was, do we need to recalibrate the Eagles? Like, are they an actual playoff team? Then they went and came back to earth. And then, they get killed by the Bengals. They get killed by the Packers. They go under 500, and they were the worst team you could ever. Carson Wentz is going to stink. So this whole idea that you can give a guy a year and really get to know what you've got, I think that's a farce, actually. So I don't really know what to think of this going forward.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think, for the quarterback position in particular, you have to look at it at case-by-case basis. And the tough part about that is we live in a world today where it's like, you're seeing Patty Mahomes. He came in, sat for a year, and he's lighting it up, winning Super Bowl. So, and then, you got guys like Jordan Love who is sitting behind Aaron Rodgers. And, that whole situation, you're trying to figure out what to do there. So I think you have to look at it in a case-by-case basis. And me, primarily the way I would look at it is he showing progress? Meaning, yes, you already know going in, he's going to have some bad games, right? Some games are going to look better than others. There's a lot of other factors that come into play when you're talking about the quarterback position. But is he showing, number one, is he showing progress? Is he showing that he's able to get through his reads? Is he showing that he's showing up to work? Is he studying tape? Is he leading? Is he doing all the other stuff that you would like your franchise quarterback to be, right? If he's doing all those things, and yes, he drops a game or two, or he looks bad for a couple of outings, I don't think you can just toss him away like that. And I mean, we're seeing quarterbacks playing well into their 40s, and
amazingly, yeah,
it's and then
incredible.
So it's a thing, and then it's a situation where it's like, if you give a guy the keys for one year, and then you turn it over, then you're going to have that same short minded, I guess, I don't know what the word I'm looking for. Like, you're going to have that's the same short patience the next quarterback, because now you probably, gave up more resources to get another quarterback. And then it's like, you never really give yourself, it's kind of like we talk about the wide receiver coaching position, where you got like a new guy every single year. You're never really going to get progress there. So you have to give it more than a year.
What do you think, Adam? You know that when the Eagles drafted Jalen Hurts, they said we wanted a cost-efficient backup. Right. Well, now they actually have a backup now who I think is making more money than the starter. Right? Isn't Joe Flacco's cap number going to be bigger than Jalen Hurts?
Yeah, it's true. They're paying both guys less than $5 million cash, but combined, it's a bizarre situation. Look, I'm sure they're not going to trade up for a quarterback. I'm just, to make this clear, I'm not reporting anything. I'm just using a scenario. But if they did trade up, because I know I know for a fact they've talked to teams and had multiple conversations with teams ahead of them. But that's typical draft stuff, as far as I'm concerned. But if they did trade up for a quarterback, first of all, they've been given this opportunity. They traded Wentz. We know how that ended. We don't need to go into that. Here you go. You draft this kid late second round. The owner loved him. We all know that. Okay, Roseman liked him. Doug Peterson liked him. Okay, now's your opportunity. Let this kid play. Let's find out what you have with him. Theoretically, that's what they should do. But there's a saying in the National Football League: when you don't have your guy, you keep looking for your guy. But don't you owe it to yourself to find out if he could be the guy? That's where I'm at with it.
Well, I think that patience becomes the key here, or your ability to be able to evaluate, right, becomes really key here. Because if you only have a year, then you got to be kind of spot on. But don't you think also you have to be fair? The job of a coach is to put a player in position to succeed. And if there are games where Jalen does not look good, I'm sure there were some people who will say, well, look, he's got like half of an offensive line around, just like we were talking about with Carson last
Well,
year.
under good circumstances, right? That's a fair point, because if they come out of the draft with no quarterback high up, and it is Hurts as we expect, I would like to, just from if we put our analyst hat on, you make such a great point, because I'd like to see under normal circumstances, okay, the receiver core is what it is, okay? We'll know they're going to add somebody, but it could be in the first round. But with that offensive line, as you just brought up, other than the Niners had the worst injury and COVID situation. I would argue the Eagles were number 2 in injuries in terms of key players being out. How do you evaluate a quarterback when he's not playing with the guys he needs to be playing with, the offensive line? It starts with the offensive line, right?
Q.
Yeah. I mean, it starts with the offensive line, but like one of the things that I remember talking to a friend of mine about, coaches and stuff, and one thing that a lot of times we forget is, players sometimes and fans, is that, a coach, he wants to win or lose with his own players, right? So with Sirianni coming in, he is as great as Jalen Hurts looks or might look or whatever. Sometimes as a coach, you want to win or you want to lose with your own guys. You want to say, you want to have the guys that you picked on your roster. And so that's something that that worries me a little bit, because like we mentioned earlier, the pinball situation, like one day he might like him, one day he might not. One day, we want to trade up to try to get Wilson. One day later we trade an hour later we trade back down. So it's just a weird thing. And I don't know if there's a consensus right now on what they want.
All right. Well, it's a good segue also to talk about the draft, because this will be an opportunity for Nick Sirianni and to some extent John Gannon, because they've had input to really start to bring in this new class of Philadelphia Eagles. Adam, you mentioned being at 12, obviously some opportunities there. You could stay at 12, maybe trade up, maybe trade back. I'm exhausted by up, back, down. So, for once, I just want the Eagles to be like, oh, hey, we're 12. Here's a good player. I'm going to pick him, and let's on to day 2, right? But it's never that easy with this team. I'll start with you, Jason, because Adam and I were laughing about this. You had a very strong statement about earlier this month about I will punch the TV, right? I think is what you said. if the Eagles pass on Patrick Surtain, and I was like, man, if you're JC Horn and you're reading that, right, or you seeing that, because these two guys are kind of seen as neck and neck, and you guys did a great job of breaking it down. I know it was a little hyperbole there, but can you go into, do you still feel that way now? And is there a reason why you think Surtain the second would be a better fit for what the Eagles plan to do than JC Horn?
Well, here's my logic on it. J.C. Horn is a very talented player. Both guys have, NFL pedigree with their parents playing in the National Football League, their dad's playing in the National Football League. The difference for me is who can get the ball back. That's the name of this game in the NFL. That's the number one stat that correlates to wins and losses is the turnovers.
Don't tell Jim Schwartz that.
Yeah, I was going to
say. Can the team protect the football, and can the other team turn it over? That's the lifelong battle that goes back and forth. That's the good and evil in the National Football League.
Yep.
And when you start to do that, J.C. Horn in 2 years, in 3 years has 2 interceptions. Right? He has 4 overall turnovers, right? 2 forced fumbles. And you go and you look at Patrick Surtain, he has 10 overall turnovers. He has 4 interceptions. He has 4 forced fumbles. And he has 2 fumble recoveries, right? So you start that's double the amount of productivity coming from that position. And you're talking about covering the elite guys each and every week. Now, both of them are in the best conferences, but you're going to get the best players, everything, when you're playing against Alabama. And I know that he's a technician. The only time I ever see Patrick Surtain struggle is when he doesn't get his hands on you at the line of scrimmage. And there's a few times, it's like every now and again, I don't know if it's because he's tired or it's because it's a quicker guy. Like I seen Kyle Pitts. I seen Kyle Pitts,
Josh
guy
Palmer,
from Tennessee. Yeah, a few guys that, and some coaches does some creative things when they get guys in the stack, and that's hard for any corner.
Mhm.
But when he doesn't get his hands on you, but that's true for every big guy, because this guy's 6'2", 207 pounds, right? So that's true for every big guy. You got to get your hands on him. And the same is true with JC, but JC has 5, pass interferences this year too. He didn't get that many targets. And he played the ball well, but he doesn't, for his dad being in the National Football League, he doesn't turn the ball over that well. I don't think he has great hands. So therefore, I think there's the clear-cut favorite in Patrick Surtain. But if you get, stuck with JC on, I'm not going to be terribly mad, but I think Surtain is the superior player.
Q, cross-examine.
Yeah.
How do you feel about it?
No, I agree 100%. I think the thing that we can kind of get lost into is what type of scheme. So JC, he played a lot of press. He played a lot close to the line of scrimmage. Surtain did a lot of press, a lot of, cover two. I think they both did, a lot of in the flat type cover two type defenses. Personally, I agree with everything Jason said. I like Surtain. I like him more. I do think that JC, he's a phenomenal athlete, and he's a guy I wouldn't be angry if the Eagles took him.
Like 1 and 1A, I feel like you both feel like Horn's pretty good enough to be drafted there.
Absolutely,
right,
absolutely, yeah, absolutely, and it's a tough one, man. It's like if they're both available, that's going to be a funny situation, right?
Won't
there.
happen at 12.
Yeah.
I would be. That would be the upset of the draft if both of them are 12. I'd be shocked. Think about Dallas though at 10. How do they pass a corner up?
I think something would have to be like you'd have to see a picture of one of those two guys with the gas mask, like Laramie Tunsil. And even then, I'm not sure that they would slip out of the top 12 anymore.
You know what? I don't think that is outside the realm of Dallas, not taking a corner.
I agree.
Just from watching the tape, right? Because they got a lot of offensive linemen needs, and say an offensive lineman falls to them, Rashawn Slater or Sua or something crazy happens where one of those guys fall, it may not be that bad of a choice. Now, I still believe that they think that Trayvon Diggs is a great player. They've drafted corner over the last couple of years at a high rate, right? Which Chidobe Awuzie and Jordan Lewis from Michigan. So they've drafted a lot of corners. So will they take them? It's a high chance, but it's not a 100% to me, just from my point.
The problem that they have right now is they have Jordan Lewis is nickel, Anthony Brown's a slot.
Yeah.
They need that outside guy. They're not as bad off as the Eagles are, but they're not too far away. They just you can't, as you guys know, you can't line up in the National Football League. Even if you have two guys, you need three. The Eagles learn when you suffer injuries at outside corner, you're putting guys in like Michael Jacquetta. It's over. You can't.
Yeah, it's over with.
Yeah.
I know evaluating they gave up a lot of plays, and most of the plays was given up by Trayvon Diggs, right? Just young and
right. He got better. I thought as the
he
season
got better
went on.
as the year went on, but early in that year he gave up
rough.
everything, right?
Yeah.
It was just bad. The Eagles actually had a really good grade on Chidobe Awuzie. They felt like he was a really good player. Now, will he get back to form? I don't know. But anyhow.
He's in Cincy. Yeah, he's in Cincy.
Yeah. Or he's in Cincy now. Yeah. So if he's in Cincy, I'm sorry about that. Yeah. So, yes, they need a corner then. Yeah. Because I thought he was there. So sorry about that.
But the weird thing is with Caleb Farley falling, they're talking now he might fall into the second round. So,
true.
I could see Dallas, possibly taking another need like a lineman or a tight end or something, and then possibly trying to move back up into the high second round and trying to snag Caleb Farley if he's still there. Because I feel like he's a better fit for what they like to do in Dallas than Surtain is. So it'd be interesting to see.
I don't want to get too much into now, like going through every single day 2 or day 3 guy. I would like to get from you guys a little bit of an overarching philosophy. After whoever get the first round, does seem likely corner, but it might not be. We'll see. But Adam, I'll start with you. Like, what do you want from the Eagles out of the 3-day draft? Like, what is your overriding philosophy that you feel
need to
happen
over the 3 days, over the 7 rounds? And we highly suspect they won't keep all 11 picks, but just come out with 2 outside corners. Okay, don't reach. Greg Newsome is the 3rd guy. Do not take him at 12. If the top 2 kids, one of them would definitely be gone. Chance that both would be gone. depends which team you talk to. Everybody seems to have a different opinion I've spoken with. But anyway, you and I have shared these notes, Geoff. I mean, it's not a lock that one of them will be there at 12.
Right.
Newsome's a trade down possibility to me. He's a guy that I've put in every mock draft I've just participated in. I put Newsome at the Northwestern corner, 16 to the Cardinals.
Mm-hmm.
They're worse off than the Eagles are at outside corner. They just,
that's hard to believe.
If you look at, you wouldn't believe it. I mean,
I know.
Yeah, it's bad. So to sum it up, 2 outside corners, 1 receiver, and I'm going to give you something because this Jason could help me with this because you were there. You correct me if I'm wrong. The way that I heard it is they don't have an alpha receiver there. When I say that, let me explain it. They don't have a leader, take charge guy in that locker room at receiver. Greg Ward's a nice guy, high character guy. He's not a vocal guy. They need somebody, because this is why I advocated for Marvin Jones. I know they couldn't sign him because they didn't have any money. Marvin Jones talking to guys who've worked with him. He's now with where the hell did he go? Oh, Jacksonville.
Jacksonville.
Right? He's a high character, set the example, follow me type guy.
Marvin Jones is a good person.
Okay, right. Good guy, but
and productive.
Tell me this. You were with them, okay? I mean, I don't think this is you're speaking out of school here. Do they have that guy in that room?
I think that guy for them would be Jalen Reagor.
Jalen, though, right?
So, but here's the thing about this thing I love about Jalen Reagor is that Jalen Reagor is the type of dude that you want to take into a bar fight with you. That's who he is.
I thought that was Dallas Goedert's thing. Oh no,
he got suckered. He got suckered.
I know. I'm just
but Jalen Reagor is that guy for them. Now, part of the reason, him being young and not having enough, NFL type of scheme come in college where those guys, I hate that system where the guys are looking to the sideline and the coach didn't tell them what to do. It's actually dumbing them down where they can't play fast in the National Football League. So it's going to take him a year to develop, but he has the skill set and he has the mentality to be a number 1 receiver. So can he be that? Can he develop into it? Yes. It's going to take Aaron Moorhead. It's going to take a bunch of people to kind of get him into the position when it comes to just fine tuning his craft. But he has the mentality to do what you're saying. But
I'm talking more about a locker room because the way it explained to me was everybody knows how gifted he is. That's not in question. I know he had 2 different injuries. That's also part of his performance last season. But that room needs a leader who sets the example of practice.
Sets the game practice, yeah.
Right, where he doesn't have to say a word. Just his performance is so good. It's almost like follow me without saying it.
It's kind of hard to do that until you produce.
But besides Greg Ward, there is no guy like that. Yes. So the high productivity, lunch pail, veteran guy. No, we don't have that person on the team.
It's also hard for a rookie to come in.
Hard for a rookie.
Of course. Right.
Do we have the potential in Jalen Reagor? Yes. Do we have the potential of it? Yes. It could, and I'm gonna tell you this: there was a point in last season because I evaluated the receivers every week.
Yeah.
And I had to dig through, see ways they can get open, different things. There was a point where it's about a 5-game stretch where Jalen Reagor should have had over 100 yards. It was, and most people won't see it. He should have had over 100 yards, and it was all because of minute details within his route pattern, like small things. In college, he was so fast, he stuck at the top of his break. He didn't have to run that fast. He stuck at the top break here. You got to run through it. And he just got overthrew on a few of them, and then a quarterback on the wrong side of the field. But he could have had over 100 yards for about a 5-game period.
Do you think he's aware of that?
I talked to him about it. I talked to him about it, and we went over it. So those are some things. He has a lot of potential. It's having consistent offensive line play. I think that Jalen Hurts, just in my opinion, is a really good player and is going to be a really good player.
Okay.
So I think that'll benefit. But yes, to your point, no, we don't have that guy.
So what would I'll ask the same thing to you of Adam as we talk about the draft in its entirety. What would be like what's your takeaway that you want for the Eagles after they're done drafting? Your big picture takeaway. What would make you happy? That's you, Jay.
That's me, Jay. Oh,
That's
okay.
you.
I'm sorry,
Zach's
question. Okay,
That's
I'm
okay.
like,
It was
sorry.
such a poignant question that I know you lost your breath for a minute.
It was a great question. Like Adam said, here's the thing. Let's go down. So there's some glaring needs. I think that the two needs that this team needs that we always seem to avoid. One is cornerback. Everyone, Adam talked about two cornerbacks need to be drafted, but a dominant cornerback, I believe that's the only play in the first round. If one of those two guys are there, I think that's the only play. The other thing that this team forgets to address every year is the linebacker position. Like at some point,
it had to come up.
Interesting choice of words. Forgets or
this team does. Like I said, like we had a Pro Bowl linebacker since Jeremiah Trotter, right? So it's one of those things where where we don't have that guy, and I think there's been a lot of teams with some success in the National Football League with a guy that can run around, make plays, that can stop the run and move sideline to sideline. So you have to address that guy within the first 2 rounds, I believe. I think that, first 3 rounds and try your best to get a guy that can play. So I would love to see them with a cornerback or 2, a linebacker, and then our edge has not been that productive. We do not have a guy. As much as I love Brandon Graham, he's a great teammate, great locker room. He's a great B option type of pass rusher. We have not had the dominant pass rusher that teams have that can wreck a football game. And I don't know if that guy's in this draft. Some people say it's Quiddy Pay, other people's, but at the same time, like you have to figure out that guy. So I would say my needs that I would think would be cornerback, linebacker, and edge rusher. Now, Jason, the receiver's not in there. The reason why is because I think the only surefire receiver in this draft for me is Jamar Chase. Devontae has questions with his size, and you have a bunch of guys that look just like Devontae Smith on your team. So I don't necessarily love that. And then you say Jalen Waddle, that's Jalen Reagor, right? So without it being Jamar Chase, I don't necessarily know if there's a guy. You may say Terrence Marshall. That's my, the third or fourth guy that I love, but I don't necessarily see it being a guy that's going to transform your organization. I think that guy would have been made in free agency. That's just me. If it's not Jamar Chase, I don't necessarily know.
All right. So did you guys also notice that after he slandered one Michigan player, Brandon, his former teammate, he had to prop up. It sounded like slander to me. But, no, I'm just kidding. But you had to throw Quiddy Pay in there to kind of balance the scale. Like, if I'm going to talk about Brandon, I got to Quiddy Pay there to get my Michigan guys in.
No, Brandon's been an all-time. I'm the only one that picked that up. Brandon's been an all-time great here, as far as Eagles history, right? So he's deserved his contracts and his rewards and all those things. Definitely. But you still need a younger player that's going to have high productivity, double-digit sacks consistently.
Fair.
And we don't have that guy. When have we had that guy? I don't know.
You're right. It's been a while. And your point on Trotter, he's like just a few years away now from becoming the answer to a trivia question, the same way Jerry Robinson is, which is when's the last time the Eagles took a linebacker? Not like Marcus Smith, like a real linebacker, 4-3 linebacker in the first round, 1979, Jerry Robinson. When's the last time an Eagles linebacker made the
I'm old enough to remember Jerry out of UCLA.
There you go. When's the last time an Eagles Pro Bowl linebacker made a Pro Bowl? Jeremiah Trotter. We're going to be telling our grandkids, hey.
I play with Jeremiah Trotter. They call him the Axe Man.
There you go. Q, your voice is raspy enough. You don't have to pretend to be a grandpa. Like
I will argue though. Before we move on, I think both you guys play with this guy, Stuart Bradley, before he tore his ACL. Guys, do you remember how good he was?
Yes, he was.
Stu was a very good athlete. Very, very good athlete. He can roll. I was surprised. Stu can roll.
Yeah, he could hit too. He wasn't afraid.
Yeah, that was a rough night.
He had to struggle with covering. That's the only thing. But most linebackers have a problem covering people.
Right. So Q, your big picture, what would you like the Eagles to do? Like, what would you want them to come away with in a big picture outlook?
So me personally, I'm as a defensive guy, my main thing is I want to see them remake this defense. I want to see them get a difference maker at each level of the defense. So whether that's you get a defensive lineman, obviously a cornerback, secondary guy, and a linebacker. Those are the three positions where, and I do think that, in the later rounds, you can find some guys that can come in with the blue collar mentality, guys with a chip on their shoulder, guys that'll come in, they'll do whatever they have to do to get on the field. They'll play special teams, whatever. That's how you really build it. So I would like to see a playmaker, a physical playmaker at each position, each level of the defense. And then offensively, I want to see them. I want to see them get a couple playmakers, obviously at receiver, and then draft for depth at the line. There's a lot of good players. There's a lot of good young up and coming players in the later rounds that you can get as a developmental lineman. Coach Stout will do a great job with those guys. I mean, look what he did with Jordan Mailata. Like, he's a great coach. So give him some more guys to work with. That's the way I see it, man. You can get one or two playmakers. You need a running back. You can get those in the later rounds, but let's get a playmaker at corner. Let's get a playmaker at linebacker, and let's get a playmaker at one of the line positions.
Forgetting one position, the one you played.
Safety. Well, funny you say that. I actually like. There's quite a few safeties that are in the mid range that I actually really like. Like Adarius Washington, he's the other safety that played alongside Trevor Mooring at TCU. He's not the biggest guy, but I like him on film better than the other safety. He plays with a lot of speed. He's not the biggest guy, but plays with a lot of speed, a lot of aggression.
So funny, as we've gotten closer to the draft, we've heard guys like Richie Grant. I keep hearing, I like so-and-so better than Trevon Mooring. I've heard it seems like people are down on Mooring, but yet he's still going to go in the first round because of his athletic testing and everything.
Yeah, I mean, the guy's a specimen, but I just think watching the tape, the guy that really popped up to me was Ardarius Washington.
That's how it works every time. You're watching one player, and then some guy that doesn't have the measurables keeps showing up on tape. That's just how it is. So ultimately, to say, one final word with that is that you want to leave the draft with starters, right? You don't want to leave the draft, especially with your first 3 picks. If you can get starters, within those picks, you're winning after pick 3. You get into the 3rd and 4th round, and you pop a starter out of that. But the good teams, those first 2 picks are definitely starters. That 3rd and 4th pick, if you can get some starters out of that, man, you are winning.
Right.
But we don't want a bunch of question marks where why this guy isn't playing. That's what we've been getting out of the draft. Oh, what's happening to JJ Watt? Our Arthega Whiteside? Does he have a learning problem? Like we have to become like psychologists in order to figure out why guys not playing. Right. So we don't want that. That's what we want as the fans. Right. And as guys that analyze this game, we just want guys that show up and they can be accounted for. We don't want to have to go and get a shrink in order to figure out why guys not playing.
Listen, that you just parlayed into how I'm going to sum up what I want from the Eagles out of this draft. And Jay, like you hit on that. For me, Adam and I talk about this a lot. A lot of people don't know the names and the faces of the people in the Eagles scouting department, and personnel department, and all the coaches and the makeup and everything. But they're good. They would have jobs elsewhere. They need to be listened to. And so my wish list for the Eagles is that simply you spent all this time creating a board. When the time comes to make the pick, you pick the best player on the board, player on the board. There are some exceptions, but I don't mind picking players where you already have some talent at, because as we see with injuries, as we see with anything, suspension, anything, guys will get on the field and play if they're good enough. And I'm of the mindset that there's no such thing as a perfect team. But if you can get 6 or 7 really good players, right, as opposed to 6 or 7 players that fill the areas, you're like, I need 3 linebackers and 2 cornerbacks and then a backup running back. No, if you get good players who play well, they compensate for the areas where you're deficient, right? I mean, the Chiefs, when they won the Super Bowl 2 years ago, a lot of people can't name their cornerbacks. They weren't as good as their front 4 or their quarterback, obviously Patrick Mahomes, right? So you can even find that with Tampa. I'm sure there are some guys on Tampa you would say that's their weakness. Every team has a weakness, but it's how many good players you have. So go get as many good players you have by staying true to your board, because your board tells you who the good players are. That's why you spent all that time creating it. I don't want to hear new philosophies. I don't want to trade up in the second round for a punter because all the analytics tell you that flipping the field is the best thing that you can do in an NFL game these days. And teams that flip the field really well with punters and now they're cost, I don't want to hear new
You're
philosophies.
on a roll, man.
I want them to take the players they have ranked on the board for a reason. Is it that hard? Like, you put all that work in. At the last minute, is it really worth it to be like, well, you know what? That's all. That's all. Be harmonious, be a team, win as a team, lose as a team, do it together. That's what I'm all about. Before we get more into the future of the Eagles, though, there's one thing we haven't done, because you guys once did an episode where you talked about the pre-draft process. Q, you talked about what it was like to go undrafted and, going out and playing basketball all mad. Your pop came out and you had to talk with him. Jay, you talked about the pre-draft process for you, how you really wanted to beat a 4.4, and I think you did it once, like on a really hot day. You didn't tell me, Jay, though, in that story about the day. You guys didn't talk about literally the day you were either drafted or you're signed, and like what that moment was like for you. Like, Jay, start with you. You were drafted in the 4th round. Were you watching it from first round on? Were you like studying it, wondering, like, what was it like?
Yeah, so I had family that was, your family always want to do something nice for you. Mm-hmm. And I had a inkling that I would not be drafted in that first 2 rounds, right? So I kind of knew that I wouldn't, but they're like, hey, let's throw a draft. I'm like, I don't want a draft thing because I'm not going to get drafted first day. So it's going to be these bunch of people around feeling sorry for me and making it worse, right? So sure enough, I got a big head brother that's like, man, no, we're going to celebrate. Whatever. I was like, okay, here we go. So I didn't get drafted. And I'm looking at guys coming off the board, guys that I know that I'm better than. So I'm pissed. Like some people are like relishing the opportunity to play in the NFL. By the time the end of the first round went by, I'm pissed. Second round go by, I'm like really, really mad because Brandon Williams from Wisconsin went to St. Louis. I'm like, are you kidding me, right? So I'm like, and what's the kid? And it was a kid, something, I can't remember his name, from Florida State that went ahead of me. I was just like, okay. So I didn't watch it the next day. So the next day is like the 3rd and the 4th round. So I didn't even watch it. I just went to church and I had my phone on in church. I had it on vibrate. And right when the last, benediction or sermon was done, I'll walk out and it's Coach Reed on the phone. No, it's Howie. Hey, you want to be, no, I said that wrong. It was Heckard at the time.
Okay.
You want to be an Eagle? By this time, I'm like, yeah, I'm not excited or anything like that, right? I'm not excited.
He's probably like, what's wrong with this guy?
Yeah,
I just drafted him.
I'm not excited at all. They're like, hey, you can be Morning Wig, Coach Reed, everyone. Like, I'm like, all right, whatever. And I remember it being a rainy Sunday, and I remember standing in my driveway with my trainer, him just pelleting balls with me in the rain. Like, dude, I'm gonna show these dudes I'm way better than most of the guys that draft ahead of me. Mm-hmm. And so it pissed me off. So that was my draft experience. And I remember coming to Philadelphia. I drove my Buick to Philadelphia.
Wait, from where? Where did you live?
From Chicago. Like, so I was at Michigan. Like, I went to train in Arizona, but I was for the draft. I was back home in Chicago, so I drove. Matter of fact, I drove to Michigan and grabbed some items, and then drove right to Philadelphia. Stayed in my car the night before I had to report to camp.
And the guy you were talking about was Willie Reed from Florida State.
Willie Reed, that's it was.
He really never made it.
Yeah,
and it's interesting that draft that you were in, man. That
we had a lot of guys. We had a lot of guys drafted late that day.
Well, Hall of Famer, a future Hall of Famer was drafted right before you. I'm sure you know.
Oh, B. Marsh, who is that? Who got drafted before me?
Jari Evans.
Jari Evans, Philadelphia guy.
Yeah. Wow, yeah.
Yep.
And Brandon was right there too. Brandon Marshall was there. And I trained with him, so it was good. The later rounds had a better run at it in that draft for receivers. So
I still can't get over the Buick.
Yeah, so drove my Buick. I had a Buick Enclave right from the Tiger Woods commercial.
I love it. That's fantastic. Q, what was your travel like to Philly? We know about your post signing story, I should say, but what was your flight like, and what do you remember about? Unfortunately, it's the first and second rounders. They get the whole cheesesteak tour and the press conference and all that. They get wined and dined and everything. But what was your first day like?
Yeah, it's packed up my bag. So I went to high school in Eugene, Oregon. So I got the ticket and all that settled up. I packed 2 large bags, right? Everything that I had, all the clothes, everything I had, and packed them all up. I'm like, I'm not coming back here. So load everything up.
Love it.
Head out to Philly. We get there. And then you're right. I think we got picked up by a shuttle bus, and they put us back then. They used to put us at no limo, definitely no limo. Like it was like 10 of us in a hot, sweaty van. We check into the what was that? The airport Marriott. The residence. Yeah.
You get murdered. You get murdered at the residence.
You're like, is this a bad movie I just walked into here? Yeah.
For real. I'm like, man, where are we at? I'm thinking he's supposed to be but nah. So then we check in. And then my roommate was Norman LeJeune, who actually got drafted that year in the 7th round from LSU. And Norman was funny. But we just had our stuff. I'll remember, I'll never forget the first meeting we had. So we show up at the NovaCare complex, and this is where we get the crabs, and you get the giant Alaskan snow crab legs, and you get filet mignons, and you're like, oh, this is life. So the first person I meet in the NFL as an NFL Eagle player was Hollis Thomas.
Oh my God!
Of all people,
of all the people to meet first, huh? Of course, because we were at the buffet table, right?
So we're just standing there. And actually, we're just standing there waiting for everybody to come. And he's got this big diamond. I don't know if you guys remember. He used to have a big diamond earring in the chin.
He still has it.
Who the hell is this guy? He keeps looking at me, and he's like, and I can't repeat what he said, but he's like, damn. He's like, you're making y'all NFL players shorter and shorter every year. Like, dang, man. Like, he's like, yeah, I thought Doc was short, but you're tiny, ain't you? I was like, all right, thanks, buddy. But it was a great experience.
Listen, man, if that's the worst thing Hollis said to you,
back.
Consider yourself lucky.
Well, that was the PG version of it.
Can I ask you one question about that being an undrafted free agent? Because you said you're not coming back. You're packing all your stuff. Was your mindset, I'm making this, okay, I know I got a lot to learn, but I am making this team. No one's going to stop me. Well, what was the mindset going to training camp for you?
Yeah, it was a mindset of it. It was anger. Like I felt like I had a pretty good college career. I felt that I tested well, and it wasn't the best I could have done, but I thought, given what I'd done on tape and the study and the film and everything, I thought that would always outweigh all the measurables. So I was, needless to say, I was pretty angry and pissed that I didn't get drafted, and it's a little embarrassing, and you just feel like you're less than now. So my mentality when I came here, the chip on my shoulder was like, I'm gonna show you every single time I'm on the field that I deserve to be here. And a lot of guys have that same mentality. The most successful guys in the NFL, like Tom Brady, one of the most successful guys in the NFL, has that mentality. I'm going to prove it to you every single week. So,
who were your coaches your rookie season, Jay and Q? Who were your coaches, your position coaches?
My position coach was David Culley, Marty Morningwig, offensive coordinator, and I had to win over Marty. Actually, Marty hated my guts because at the beginning. Whoa. Yeah, but I won him over. It took me a year. It took me 2 years to win him over. But David Culley actually is the one that went to bat for me because he had me at the combine, and my personality has always been high energy, and I was always confident. So I never especially when I'm on the field. If you tell me when we had our position drills as receivers, I was the most confident. And I was helping guys. I was instructing them how to do stuff as well, stuff I normally do. And David Culley was like, hey, we need to draft this guy. And Coach Reed, the guys, he was telling me a story. It's like, I don't know. He runs a 4.6. I don't know. He's like, look, that's the guy I want. And Cully brought me in, and I told the other guys this before. It's like, hey, dude, I'm the reason, I put my neck on the line for you. You got to prove me right. And so I felt I had a big debt to Coach Cully in order to prove him right. And he came and thanked me after a couple of years after, he's like, dude, because you panned out, you gave me opportunity to draft Deshaun Jackson without any pushback, and same way with Jeremy Maclin. Like, he's like, because you guys panned out, so it gave him the opportunity to draft more people. So I remember that. And I remember having to win over Morningwig. So, and Coach Jim Harbaugh, he hated my guts.
Why?
John Harbaugh.
Oh, John Harbaugh.
Yeah, but why would John Harbaugh? How come?
Why did Harbaugh hate my guts?
Yeah.
Because Harbaugh is special team coach. Special team coach like speed.
And
Dynarian McCants ran faster than me, and that's just the truth, right? So the only thing that you can do on special teams has to do with either being really like a brute strong guy that can hold somebody up when they field goal rushing, or you got to be fast. That's the only thing that you need to be on special teams, fast. If you fast in special teams, you get a little tough, you're fine. And I can do the brute force and hold people up on punt, but I'm not running around people on kickoff and diving through no, coach. They ain't paying me enough for that.
Let me tell you,
and John hated my guts for that.
It felt like Darnarian that year made a pretty strong push to make the team. Is that the year Garcia was the backup quarterback?
Yeah, he made
those two had some connection, man. Like it's like that was his guy to throw to every time he was in.
Yeah, that was the
Delaware State.
Yeah. Darnarian Kent, he can play on special teams. Now he couldn't catch a cold, but he could play on special teams.
Yeah, he was fast.
He was tall, right?
He was tall. I never really realized he was that fast. That's because he was always kind of a tall, long strider.
He was big, and Coach Harbaugh let me know about it in special teams meeting. He said, "Listen, Avant, I don't know how you got in here. I wanted Dynarian McCants."
He was so funny, Harbaugh, because whatever was on his mind, he gonna let you know, like no filter.
Oh boy. So if Jay was slow, he'd say, "Man, you're too slow."
Yeah, exactly. So, but you know what it is? It is. I would learn to do other stuff, like stuff that a guy my size couldn't do well. I was a great kickoff return frontline blocker. Like, I was really good at it. I did it for 10 years. And I would block guys that was 270 pounds, and I would figure out a way. So you have to come up with something to make yourself valuable. I was really good at kickoff return. I was really good at punt, right? So, we give up punts a lot nowadays in National Football on the wing, the guy that's on the outside, because they put a big, strong defensive end or like a big burly running back, and they just rush at a receiver. And I can absorb that pretty easily. So you kind of you have to make a way for yourself, especially when you're playing third receiver.
Wow. Yeah. Great stuff. This has been great. I want to wrap it up real quick because I said we were going to focus on the future, but you guys we've talked about that with Sirianni, and what you guys just said, I think really should resonate with people listening, because we've talked about this a little bit before. That staff that Andy Reid put together with guys like David Culley, a head coach, Harbaugh, a Super Bowl champion head coach, Pat Shurmur, who's been a head coach, Spagnuolo, a two-time Super Bowl champion defensive coordinator, and also has been a head coach.
Childress.
Sean McDermott, who may be a Super Bowl head coach in the next year or two with what he's built over there. Brad Childress, who's been to an NFC championship game. Really good. I mean, what an amazing tree Andy Reid has built. And, of course, you can probably trace it back to Mike Holmgren and keep going from there. This is such an interesting new staff that the Eagles have put together. Is there something that stands out yet? I mean, it's been difficult other than the rock, paper, scissors press conference and everything like that. Anything that catches your guys' attention about this staff?
To me, the thing that really stands out is how young all of the coaching staff is. I mean, I think we were talking, and I think the linebacker coach is younger than the actual players that he's going to be coaching.
26. Yeah.
I think he's the same age as Alex Singleton, or maybe a couple months younger. Yeah.
Right. And so, like, to me, that's a little bit strange. I wonder how that dynamic's going to play out once we get into it. Especially, and it's not so much an issue when things are going good. It's going to be a big issue when, things aren't going so well. Is the respect factor going to be there, player-wise? or are the boundaries gonna be, I'm the coach, you're the player, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it gonna be? So I don't know, that it's a very, very sticky thing, and I worry about that a lot with the inexperience in the young coaching staff, because that's a big part of the game.
The thing that's and I agree with Q. So you have a couple things to me. You have this young coaching staff, which tells me that a more seasoned coaching staff was in direct opposition against front office. So you get guys in that would be more moldable to your liking from a front office standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of worries me, because now, do you want a guy that's a puppet, or do you want a guy that's going to lead the team?
Good. Great question. I think that's a question that everybody kind of wonders.
We don't know. And as far as this year is concerned, and as far as this coaching staff is concerned, it's the first time as an Eagles fan, player, coach, or what have you, that you're uncertain. With Chip Kelly, there was still some certainty because you understood his offense, you understood certain aspects of it. There was still a good roster to play with, right? So if all else failed, the roster was still good enough to compete. We don't know if the roster is good enough to compete as it stands, and we don't know if the coaching staff is good enough to overcome players that are not adequate.
Right.
So it just leaves you as an analyst, as a player, as a coach, or as a fan, very bewildered. It's the first time that there's kind of hopelessness in the city, and you never see that from this city.
That is true.
That's the concerning part.
That is true. All right, let's that's a great way to end it. Listen, we want to thank you guys. We went way more than an hour, but I think it was great content.
Appreciate it.
You guys have a habit of doing that on Q&A, right? Where all of a sudden you look at the
The
clock.
fans
like,
love it.
They love it. They actually say, can it be longer?
Keep going long. Keep going. I'm surprised by that. That's probably the biggest surprise, Geoff, I'd say, since we've done this.
Yeah.
We were told early on, don't do more than half an hour. The rules, you can't do that.
Right.
And then people were like, why are you guys rushing through this? Okay, we'll go longer.
Yeah.
And then I put on our Facebook page, I put hey guys, just want your opinion. Do you want a longer or shorter show? And I'm telling you, no less than 75 people responded, all wanted longer, but they said, don't just make it longer to be longer. Yeah,
Let it be good.
Right.
Right.
No
But
such
I
thing
was
as
like,
too
okay,
much good content.
Thank you. That's great feedback.
Yeah.
Great.
So, we can be war and peace here as long as it's good. As long as it's good. Let's do this again. We will do an Inside the Birds and Q&A crossover sometime in the future, maybe during the summer. We'll preview training camp. We'll talk about
Post-draft.
what we see. Post-draft might be a little soon, but hey, I'm up for it anytime.
Yeah.
Let me just update. Q&A will be back next week in their normal scheduled time. They'll drop Tuesday at 6 a.m. Adam, myself, and Greg Cosell will be previewing the draft from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. at Evil Genius in Fishtown.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And that'll be on all of our Inside the Birds
We're
platforms.
dropping a show Thursday, right? We're dropping Thursday morning?
Yeah, Thursday. What's that?
Yeah, we're dropping a show Thursday morning as well.
Oh,
right?
yeah. And of course, the normal ITB pod will drop Thursday morning as well. And looking forward to it. It's going to be a great time. Thank you guys for all being involved. So for Quintin Mikell out of Boise State, Jason Avant out of Michigan, and for Adam Caplan and those Temple Owls, I'm Geoff Mosher. Thanks for watching. Catch you on the next one.